go. And then I'm going to shut down my YouTube volume. All right, Jeff, I think we are live. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Okay. Now try it, because I don't think they could see you before. So now let's try one more time.
Can everybody see me? I hope so. It's great to be here.
Yep. You are. Yes, it is great to have you, Jeff. I am delighted to see you again. We've known each other for a while, and okay, yes, and the team is telling me they can see and hear you, so we're good to go. All right. So Jeff, I want to just thank you for coming and let anyone who's watching know that we have known you for quite some time. You're actually a local here. And we first started meeting you when you were coming out on some of our trips, and then you got your own boat, and you hang with some of our crew. And but you have international fame as well. And we get to know you as Jeff, but you're also known as the Whaleman. So you've been advocating for dolphins and whales now for 25 years, right?
Yes.
A little over that? Yeah.
A little over that, yes.
And a little before we met you, we had been introduced to this very special magical place called San Ignacio Lagoon. And at one point we were actually blessed to be able to go down there and experience the lagoon in what was a luxurious experience compared to sleeping on the ground in a pup tent, which is something that we did one time. So tell us a little bit about your experience with the lagoon, and then I'm going to share. Let's try this because this is new tech for me. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully, as you're talking, people will be able to see a little bit of that footage of San Ignacio Lagoon in the background. So tell us about San Ignacio.
Yeah, I wanted to give people just a little bit of background how I even happened onto this place. You know, I was born about as far away from the ocean as one could be in St. Louis, Missouri. And growing up, I always loved the ocean and loved being in the water, but I never saw the ocean until I was 6 years old. And when I finally got to go, I went to Laguna Beach, California, and was able to see the ocean there. And on the second day, my parents asked me to go over to Catalina Island with them. And so on the way out there, the captain yells, "Dolphins on the bow." I run up there and look over. And for me, it's love at first sight. I'm watching these dolphins just play and having this amazing time on the bow wave of this boat. I literally just wanted to jump in the water right there with them, but I was only 6. And of course, you can't do that. And then on the way back, we saw my first 2 gray whales. So at 6 years old,
great trip.
I was able to see dolphins and whales in the wild. And then not too long after that, I saw Jacques Cousteau on TV. And I told my mom and dad, I said, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. So that was my childhood dream. But like a lot of us, we kind of get talked out of our childhood dreams. And for me, it happened when I was about 16, talking to my dad. He goes, I said, "Dad, I really want to go to UCLA or UCSD, and I want to study dolphins and whales, and I want to be, you know, like an expert in those." And he's like, son, I know you want to be like Jacques Cousteau, but you're not French, you're not famous, you haven't invented everything. And he goes, "You should stop being such a dreamer. You should be more practical, like me." Well, my dad was an engineer, so I ended up going to engineering school at the University of Missouri. I buried that dream. And for a long time, I sold huge phone systems for AT&T. Did that for about 10 years. And when I got in my early 30s, I started thinking about, do I want to sell the most phone systems in the world? And it just wasn't that noble of a calling. And I heard about this place where you could go and you could experience these amazing gray whales. And this place was called San Ignacio Lagoon. So in March of 1995, I gave myself a little vacation and I went down there and I experienced these gray whales like you're seeing on the screen right now. They would come close enough to these boats that you could reach out and you could touch them. And it was just an amazing experience. I actually happened on a camp that had just opened up that year called Kawima. So all my experiences over the past 25 years at the lagoon have been at the same camp. And I've got to know a lot of these whales personally as well. And it was just such a magical experience. And on my last night there, I'm sitting with the owner of the camp, Jose Le. And he goes, "Hey, Jeff, did you happen to stop at Scammons Lagoon on your way down here?" I go, "Yeah, I stopped there." And he was like, "What did you think of that place compared to here? Did we just have a glitch? Or are we okay?"
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm sorry. My screen, everyone was seeing my instant messages with the team. Not. So I think now, let's make sure they're seeing that. That's beautiful footage. Yes. Okay. Go right ahead. Sorry about that, Jeff.
Okay, so I can't see myself anymore, but hopefully they can. So I can see you and I've got that. Okay.
Okay.
So what I was saying was he asked me while I was sitting at dinner if I had gone to Scammons Lagoon. That's Jose Le right there in that picture, by the way.
Cool.
And I said, "Yeah, I'd been there." And he goes, "What do you think about that place compared to here?" And I'm like, there's no comparison. It's at San Ignacio. It's beautiful. It's just pristine. You've got this mountains and deserts surrounding this beautiful emerald green sea and these amazing whales. And I said, up there, you had this dirty town full of trash. There was this big industrial plant. I go, "I wouldn't want to go see whales there, even if the whales are okay there." And he goes, "Oh, you saw that big salt plant?" He goes, "That's a big industrial salt plant that Mitsubishi and the Mexican government own. And they want to build one twice as big right here in San Ignacio Lagoon." And literally something inside of me snapped and I was like over my dead body. So the next day I drove back to San Diego where I was living at the time. And I asked my boss for a leave of absence. And he said, "No." And I go, it took about 3 hours for them to come back and say no. They actually said, "Hey, we got some good news for you. You got 6 weeks of vacation. You're one of our best salespeople. You can use your 6 weeks, use the weekends, use your weeknights. That should be adequate for you." And I go, "So they're not going to give me the leave?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, I like half that plan." I took my 6 weeks on the spot and I quit. And that's when I started the Whaleman Foundation. And what Whaleman means to me is bringing whales and mankind together to preserve and protect our world. And my foundation was birthed right down there in San Ignacio Lagoon with those beautiful baby gray whales.
Wow.
So that's how I got started. And then I decided, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? How am I going to help save this place? And I decided I wanted to make a film. And this is the film that everybody's watching right here without the sound and all of that. But this is the very first film that I ever made called Gray Magic, The Plight of San Ignacio Lagoon. And I made it for the United Nations. And I don't think we saw the very beginning of it, but I was fortunate enough to get Pierce Brosnan and his wife, Keely Shea Smith, to do the intro on this because I needed somebody with gravitas. Nope, that's not Pierce. That's Joaquin.
No, that's Joaquin. There's Pierce.
There's Pierce and Keely. I mean, and that was the thing, to have them with their international gravitas to introduce this film to the United Nations. This film made a huge difference. Dr. Mechthild Rossler, who handled the UN World Heritage Sites for Mexico, I had cold called her and I said, "Listen, if I would make a film, would you take the time to look at it, to compare and contrasted San Ignacio to the existing salt plant in Guerrero Negro?" Because nobody from the UN had been to either place. I asked her, I said, "Anybody in your staff been there?" "No." "Anybody, from the UN been there?" "No." And as a result of this film, they showed this film at the huge meeting in 1999 in Kyoto, Japan, of the United Nations. Then they sent investigative teams there. And as a result of that, they went and met with President Zedillo in February of 2000. And they basically told President Zedillo, "Listen, we can't stop you from building this salt plant. But if you do, we're thinking about pulling all of the World Bank funding for the Mexico's World Heritage Sites." So then President Zedillo was like, maybe I should go see this place for myself. So in March of 2000, I was hired by NRDC and IFAW to take all 5 existing camps, which we did at that time. We brought in press, we brought in some other celebrities. And on the second day we're there, these 2 huge helicopters come and they land right at the edge of the lagoon. And out comes President Zedillo, his wife, some bodyguards, the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they want to go whale watching. And my friend Sextus at the time he was the head of Kawima, and he set up for them to go whale watching. And so they went out. And once they got past that imaginary line where the whales can be friendly or not, this mom and calf came right up to the boat, like this big whale that's right next here. Yeah. And his kids and his wife started hugging and kissing these whales and having just an amazing time. Goes on for like 45 minutes. He comes back He gets out of the boat. Sextos asks if he can videotape them. He says no. He goes, but I'm going to tell you something you can't make public for 2 days. I'm not going to build anything here. I'm going to forever preserve and protect this place. And that was on March 3rd of 2000. And I just came back from San Ignacio celebrating the 20th year of us helping to save that place.
Wow.
Wow. So this is why this place is so important to me. And this is the very first film I ever made. I wasn't a filmmaker at the time. I really didn't quite know how I was going to get it done, but I did it. And there was a lot of us that were involved in this. Pierce and Keeley were huge in getting this done. The group of Mexico's group of 100, along with NRDC and IFA. And but I feel really blessed that I was able to help save this place and to continue to take people there to share these experiences. And it looks just like it does now that it did back then. It's still pristine, it's beautiful, it's amazing.
It's beautiful. It's so untouched. Jeff, for people who aren't familiar with San Ignacio, the first time I went, I kind of did a lot of reading on the area before I went, but there's nobody better to tell the story than you. What's the history of gray whales in San Ignacio, or even Scammons or Magdalena Bay, these 3 lagoon areas down in the Baja Peninsula? What's the scoop with them?
Yeah, so those, you go ahead. You can kill that one for now. Yeah.
There we go.
Those 3 areas you just mentioned are the main breeding grounds for the California gray whales. The largest being Scammons Lagoon. And Scammons Lagoon got its name by a gentleman named Captain Scammon, who was not only a biologist, he was a whaler. And unfortunately, the gray whale in those areas, especially in Scammons and San Ignacio, were brought to the verge of extinction twice in the last couple of 100 years. And the way that they used to whale in a place like San Ignacio, where these whales, as you just saw, are so amazingly friendly, is that they would injure a calf. And then the adults would come to try to help with the calves. And then they'd systematically kill the adults, kill that calf, and then injure another calf and go on and on. So they had a reputation of being called the devilfish because they would smash these whale boats to pieces. And they would kill many of the whalers. And so these gray whales had this amazing reputation for being the devilfish. Now, flash forward to the mid-1970s. And there's a fisherman named Pachico and his assistant that are drifting along and doing a little fishing in San Ignacio. And all of a sudden, this gray whale comes up and starts bumping on their boat with its nose.
Now, I'm going to interrupt real quick.
Sure.
Whaling had been illegalized, if you will, made illegal when in Mexico in the 50s, 1950s?
Yeah, actually, Mexico was the first country to ever set up a whale sanctuary. Awesome. So both Scammons Lagoon and San Ignacio were the very first whale sanctuary set up in the 1960s.
Okay.
There, okay. The whaling had actually stopped in about the early 1960s.
Okay.
Okay. As far as the U.S. wasn't going to whale anymore, Mexico wasn't whaling. Mexico had stopped a lot ahead of the U.S. as far as whaling on gray whales. The Macaw Indian tribe that had started to try to kill gray whales again in the late 1990s, early 2000s, they had stopped on their own in the 1920s because the numbers were so low. Mm-hmm. Luckily, once they were put under international protection, the gray whales made a huge comeback. And today we see pretty good numbers. But right now, in all of those lagoons that I just mentioned, the last 4 seasons have not been very healthy for the gray whale. And I want to get into a little bit of that, but can you play the other San Ignacio one from this year? It was from my very first trip when we went back in March. It's the one, I think it says...
you know, I don't think I have that one queued, but go ahead and tell us what happened in, I'll go ahead and get it queued up.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead and tell us what, excuse me, what happened with the, in the 1970s. So they were out there. What happened?
Yeah, I wanted to finish that story. So they're sitting there. So Pachico Mayar and his assistant in this boat, they're sitting there and this gray whale comes up and starts to kind of rub on the boat a little bit. And it just doesn't really kind of go away. And at first they're afraid because they think, oh, they've read these stories, this gray whale might flip over my boat. And it's still kind of just bumping on the boat a little bit and kind of looking at them. And then they're finally, after a while, they kind of look over the side and it's just sitting there looking at them. And so Pacheco decides to reach out and touch this gray whale. Yeah, here we go. This is from this year. So this was my first trip in March, right around the time of the 20th anniversary, right here. The very first time I went there was March 2nd of 1995. So this is bringing me, 25 years of being down at the lagoon with these amazing animals as you see them. So that in the mid 70s was the first encounter with a friendly gray whale. And since then, it's just gotten better and better every year. It's just incredible how much fun these whales can be and just how beautiful they are and the eye contact. And think about a whale that was given the name devilfish because when it got close to boats like these, it used to bash them because they were getting stuck with harpoons. Their natural tendency is to be amazingly friendly and curious and gentle, right?
Yeah.
So it's just so amazing. So that all started in the mid 70s. And since then, we've seen a strong rebound in the numbers of gray whales. We had one die off in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was pretty bad. What we've seen the last 4 years makes that kind of look okay in comparison. And here's what I'm going to tell you. On a normal year, we would have between 120 to 150 mom and calf pairs at the peak of the season in San Ignacio Lagoon. 4 years ago, that number was 72. Okay, 3 seasons ago, that number went down to 43. Not this season, but last season, that number dropped down to 22 at the peak. And then this year, when I got there on March the 4th, I believe it was, there were only 10 mom and calf pairs in the lagoon at that point. Fortunately, it rebounded up to about 27. So now we've seen 4 years of decline. And I'm hoping this year it's leveling off, and possibly this next year we'll maybe see an increase again. The hypothesis around all of this is with global warming, the Bering Sea used to freeze solid, and that's where the whales eat during the summertime. In the wintertime, it would freeze solid, and it used to do that for eons. The last 12 years, it has not frozen over in the winter. A lot of the food that they eat like to form underneath the ice. The cocopods that are little shrimp-like creatures are very similar to krill, except they like to bury in the sand where krill like to be out in the open. We've seen a big die-off in krill. We've seen a big die-off in cocopods. So most of the researchers are looking at this and saying, we think that there's a food problem. Not as many of the whales are migrating. The females that we're seeing with calves are very healthy, which is good. So they're not skinny, but we are seeing lots of skinny males that are coming down, and they're still making the migration even though. So most of the whales that washed ashore last year, and I think the last count I had was over 70 between Baja and up into Alaska. Most of those were males. Most of those were skinny and malnourished. And so that's I think the food issue is a problem for them.
Were they younger males or older males? Do we know?
I think kind of a cross section. Yeah, I think quite a few of them were younger, but there are quite a few older ones as well.
Right.
Here's one of my favorite scenes you're going to see here coming from this year. This mom and baby, the mom had just come through and Lena giving that beautiful baby a kiss.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So in this one, this is really cool. I wish you could hear the audio on this, but I'm glad we have the images. What happens here doesn't happen very often. And this is as you can see, a lot of the interactions are with moms and calves, but sometimes we'll get just adult whales that like to interact as well. Well, this one did something that I've never had a whale do in 25 years. Somebody always asks me, it's like, don't you get tired of going down there? It's like you're seeing the same things all the time. I'm like, yeah. Every time it's like the first time. I go, it's such
right.
Well, this whale decided to start pushing the boat around. I mean, look at
oh my gosh, I can see it. Look at that.
He's swimming us around and he's getting cutted at the same time. And I've had whales bump us. I've had whales lose a little. I've never been taken on a ride by a
wow. Wow, that's fantastic.
And then this is one of the
looks
guests.
Like you were doing about 5 or 6 knots right there. He was just pushing.
I'm telling you, he was pushing us along. And then he's going to do it again. You'll see here in a minute. And he's going to go to the front of the boat. And it even gets more fascinating here. This is one of the guests video I cut in showing, her experience that close up, and the whale's still swimming us right here. You can see the wake that it's making.
Yep.
So there'll be a little, it's just loving it. There'll be a little different angle here in a second because
there you
when
are.
it changes position, it's really cool. Okay, so here's a selfie on me. So sometimes with my pole and my camera, I can get myself touching the whales, which is kind of nice.
That's great. And
so
what you're doing right now, just for people who haven't been there and they're like, what the heck? You're actually rubbing their skin. They love that tactile interaction. And sometimes you see people tossing water on top of them. They like the splashing. Yes. It does seem to draw them. They love that. I wish everyone could hear that beautiful blow, that it just kind of it makes your heart tremble, right? Your whole body vibrates with it. And oh my goodness, now
this whale has opened up its mouth. I didn't know this at the time. I wished I would have, because I'd have gone up there and gotten a picture. It hasn't quite done it yet. It's going to roll over here in a second, and it's going to start pushing us around from the front of the boat, going backwards. It's going to do this.
That's
in a minute.
Funny. Something else that we observed when we were down there was they actually, especially the babies, seem to really enjoy having their tongues rubbed. And I have a picture of me. I mean, my whole arm, I'm up to my shoulder. I've got my whole arm inside the mouth of a baby whale, just rubbing the whole tongue, and it just loved it. It was like look at this.
Yeah, see what it's doing?
Gosh, yes.
It's on its side. It's actually got its mouth like this on the V of the boat. It's got its mouth like this, and it's swimming us backwards. It's pushing us backwards.
Wow. Oh, to have a drone in the air at that time, right?
Yeah, it would have been crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the ride of a lifetime right there.
It was. And I mean, it was so gentle, but at the same time, we're doing like 6 knots going backwards. It was incredible.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that.
So yeah, what you're saying too about some of the whales, the babies do like to open up their mouths. We see that in about 10% of them.
Okay.
And we had one on this trip that did that. I don't have those clips in there, but yeah, it's pretty sensational when they open up their mouths, and you, like you said, you can rub their tongue, you can rub their flame plates.
Right.
Yeah, there are some of them that really enjoy that interaction.
They do. They absolutely do.
I've had just a few adults have done the same thing. Not too often, but I have had that happen.
Right. So you had to cut your trip. And we should let everybody know, every year you actually take small groups of people, a very unique kind of trip, because the first 2 times when Dave and I went, we drove, which was gnarly. And we drove down there, and then we slept, in a tent both times. And it's very windy. The lagoon is very windy. So it seems like sometimes the wind can go as high as 50 knots. Maybe you've seen it go higher than that. But I mean, it howls and shrieks through the night. And you're thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to, to go out on the water tomorrow. And then it would abate, and you'd get to do it again, or go back out the next day. But one of the things that, you do is you take people in what I call a real luxury experience with the camp and is Sextos still there?
Sextos is not the general manager, but I have him come with my group. So he comes and assists me, because he's like a brother to me. And as you know, he's so entertaining. He's like the heart and soul of that place. The first year when he couldn't come back, I was kind of heartbroken. So the next year I called him and I said, hey, listen, can I convince you to come work with me down there for a few weeks? And he's like, yes, no problem.
Of course. Yeah, no, he's a hoot. But so you fly people down, they stay in San Diego the night before, you pick them up at their hotel in a shuttle, and then you drive them over the border. It's easy peasy, over to the Tijuana airport to a private hangar. And then they get on a private plane, and then we fly over beautiful Baja and land right on the dirt strip there, the runway, at the lagoon, and then you're there with a van. It's like, oh, cool. And you just, and then you're having this amazing lunch. The food was to die for. And I'm plant-based. So, you know, rice, beans, guacamole, the best salsa I've ever had. It was all spectacular. The cooks are fantastic. And then within an hour and a half, you're actually out on the water and you're whale watching. So it's just so much fun. And so and it's usually 2 nights, 3 days.
It's 4 days, 3 nights is my usual schedule there. And so yeah, we fly down that first morning out with the whales in the afternoon, then 2 full days. And then the last morning we have breakfast, we're out with the whales, and then we fly out around 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Great.
And now I'm using, when we come back, the CBX, which is very easy to get back across the border. You actually go right through the Tijuana airport. There's a tunnel there. And once we get off the plane, we're on the other side and we don't have to go through long lines, and it's so much easier now.
Oh, very smart.
Much faster. We save about an hour now going back through out that way.
Awesome.
So yeah, next year I'm planning at least 5 trips right now, starting on March the 3rd and all the way through March 18th.
Yeah,
so if anybody out there is interested, wants to know, you can reach me at whaleman@maui.net or whaleman, www.whaleman.org. And would love to take anybody that's interested. I've been going, this will be my 26th year next year.
Yep.
And I'm already excited to go back.
Well, I came this close. I kept thinking that if Mark wasn't going to get his passport in time, I was like, I just might be hopping on that plane. I just might, but he was able to pull it off. And he said he had the trip of a lifetime, and he was just enraptured. I mean, that's been a dream of his to go for a long time. So for people who are listening, Mark is and was one of our senior mates, and he worked with us for 15 years and retired in November. So we get to help him go on a trip, and he said it was amazing. So he's probably watching now. So anyway, okay, so tell us, Jeff, what else are you doing? I'm going to queue up your other video here, and tell us what else is going on. What else is the Whaleman working on?
Yeah, so I just want to let people know real quick, I've been doing humpback whale research for 27 years. I've currently been working on a project there the last 12 years with the Hawaiian Islands National Marine Sanctuary. We're doing an overall health assessment of the North Pacific humpback whale stock. And I work with Ed Lyman. And Ed is also, I did a film for the International Whaling Commission in 2011 that helped set up the International Disentanglement Team that Dave Matilla is the head of at the International Whaling Commission level. And then Ed Lyman is the #1 trainer for that. And I've known Ed and Dave since like 1996. So I want everybody to know, because you guys play a big part of the disentanglement team here on the West Coast of California. I'm a member of the international team, so sometimes I'm able to help here. I'm able to help in San Ignacio. I've done 2 disentanglements there as being part of the team.
Awesome.
In Hawaii, I've been a member of about 6 different disentanglements now. And also in the Dominican Republic, we did 1 disentanglement there as well. So I think it's really important people understand that dolphins and whales have huge threats from entanglement and fishing gear. The old estimates were over 300,000 are being killed. The newer estimates now are up to over 500,000 dolphins and whales being killed by entanglement every year. Yes.
Has a new paper just gotten released on that?
Yeah, it should be. There was it was at the Marine Mammal Conference, the one that was just in December. So I think that paper will be, I think they did it as a poster first, and the paper will be coming shortly, sometime this year. So yeah, it's, as you know, it's just a huge problem. And so I've been, our foundation's been very active on that for a long, long time now, as you guys have been too with your whale watch business. And, it's one of the beauties about being in the whale watch business is a lot of the whale watch companies like Captain Dave's Dolphin Safari, they go the extra mile. They're not out there actually, there are some that will just take people out to see whales and they give them a little bit of education. When you go out on these trips with these guys, you're going to get great education. You're also going to be able to see an organization that puts their money where their mouth is, and they help with lots of causes that deal with dolphins and whales. They've been a big help to my foundation over the years. And they also have the best brownies I've ever had coming off a boat, which Giselle made.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to send you some brownies after this call. Okay.
So anybody that has a chance to go whale watching with these guys, please do. I know a lot of you watching probably already have, but get your friends and everybody else to go. One of the big issues that I've been working on for a long time now is on the southern resident orcas, up off the Pacific Northwest.
Do you want me to play this video while you're talking?
Yes, that would be great.
So let me go ahead and do that. And all right.
The film that we're going to start here, that Giselle's starting, I made this film in 2001, believe it or not, so 19 years ago. And this is the Pacific Northwest you're seeing up around the San Juan Islands, Puget Sound area, up around Seattle. And Bob Talbot let me use some of his beautiful footage in this film back then. Gorgeous. This is one of Bob's shots right here. But these orcas from 1995 to 1999, over 25% of their population had died off. And it was due to both lack of food and also because the food they were eating was so loaded with contaminants like PCB, DDT, dioxins, and all of these other things that they are actually poisoning themselves when they're eating. And so I made this film called Orcas in Crisis, and I made it for the Canadian Department of Fisheries and for the National Marine Fisheries Services in the US, which is part of NOAA. And National Marine Fisheries Service, even though it's fisheries, also writes the rules for whales. And as a result of us making this film and suing the government and getting this film in as part of this case, we were able to get the orcas placed on the endangered species list in Canada in 2003, and then subsequently the United States in 2006 or so. And you can see how beautiful these animals are. They're very social creatures. These are resident orcas, so they only eat fish. These aren't the ones that are out eating other marine mammals. This is one of my favorite shots that I ever got.
Oh, just beautiful.
Right in front of me.
Wow.
Really
I love
cool.
that. Yeah.
So I got to spend I did 6 years worth of orca research up there with these guys. And they're just amazing animals. I worked with a lot of the researchers up there, and primarily Ken Balcom from Friday Harbor. He has the Center for Whale Research up there. Ken is just amazing. He's in his 80s now.
Really?
Yeah, he's one of the original whale researchers, and he started with orcas. He was one of the first ones, along with Dr. Ford, to realize that these orcas all had distinct dialects, and there were 3 distinct pods up there, J, K, and L pod for these residents. And then when they got together in super pods, they had a 4th language, which was their common language.
Wow.
And they show culture. And so these whales are just amazing. They have the biggest brain to body size, along with sperm whales and bottlenose dolphins as compared to humans. So sperm whales and orcas are actually larger brain to body size than we are. So Carl Sagan always said if he was looking for the biggest brains on the planet, he would look at the ocean, which made up 70% of it, not on land, which I always loved that line.
Yep.
A lot of these orcas that you see in these pictures aren't here anymore. They made it after we got to put on the endangered species list. There were a few rules that were put in place that helped them start to recover. Their normal numbers during a normal time would be 100 to 105. Okay, right now we're down to 71. So in the last 4 years, again, there's been another major die-off up there, and the 2 main drivers are a lack of salmon. Okay, and like I was saying, the food that they are eating so contaminated. There's 4 dams in the Snake River that need to come out. There's a lot of pushback from industry. They don't want those rivers to come out, those dams, to come out of those rivers. But if those dams are not removed, there's no way that the Chinook salmon are going to recover, and the Chinook salmon are the primary food for these orcas. And so it's that double whammy. And what happens with the females, and this has been heartbreaking the last few years. So male orcas, once they ingest contaminants, we can't get rid of our contaminants. Right. A female, though, that would give birth and then would nurse her young, she can release up to 50% of the contaminants. But guess what? Where they go?
Yeah.
They go into the baby.
Right.
Okay, remember last summer we had that one female that had her calf die just after a few weeks, and for like 17 days she swam that calf around.
Yeah.
And
heartbreaking.
We see this with pilot whales. We've seen it with some dolphin species, and of course, orcas are the largest dolphin. A lot of people do not know that. And they're also, these orcas up there, the most contaminated animals on the planet. And so we need a big push to get those. There's a bunch of Superfund sites, toxic waste sites up there that need to get cleaned out, and those 4 dams have to come out. So this summer, it was actually going to be this summer. It's going to be later now because of what's going on with COVID-19 and everything else. That's Ken Balcom when he was much younger right then, back in 2001. I'm looking to do a redo of this film, Orcas in Crisis 2, and to update it and to show how we can remove these dams and work in conjunction with industry and with the politicians up there so that we can have our cake and eat it too. We'll be able to hopefully restore the salmon runs, get the food back for the orcas where it needs to be, and industry can still be fine. So this is my biggest push for me for this year and into next, is really trying to save these orcas, because these are, they're well known up in this area. I mean, if we can't save these orcas, it's what it says for the rest of the species on the planet is things could get really, really dire really fast.
Right.
They did remove the Elwha dams, by the way, real quick. They did remove the Elwha dams. And the salmon runs in there, this was 5 years ago. It's unbelievable. They're almost 70% back to where they were.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. And so there wasn't any barge traffic on the Elwha. That's why they were able to get those dams. And it was a lot of the Indian territory as well.
Oh.
So it was easier to convince the stakeholders there to do it. The Snake River has a lot of industry, the weed industry, the barging traffic, all of that. So that's what we have to work on, to find the alternatives around, because we don't want to hurt anybody's economy. We want to preserve the environment all at the same time. Another one of Bob's beautiful breach shots.
Middle ground. Yeah. Try and find that middle ground. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, Dave and I have been blessed to get up there to Friday Harbor and Orcas Island and see these animals up close. And it's just breathtaking. It's just breathtaking. And we want them there for generations, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So if anybody wants to help with the cause, you can go to www.whaleman.org, and there's a donate button right on the front. All of the money that I take in goes to our Save the Whales Again campaign. I do save the whales again because we didn't get it right the first time, unfortunately. It was a great campaign, don't get me wrong, but today dolphins and whales are still facing more threats than they ever have.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the honest to God's truth.
Yep.
I wished it weren't so. I wished we had done a better job over these last 30 years since the whale moratorium went into place, but unfortunately we have not.
So what's this has been awesome. What's a takeaway, Jeff? What's one thing that everyone could do? Is there a change, something that everyone who sees this and like I do and says, you know, oh man, I just love these animals and I want to do something, you know, I want to do something. Jeff is doing something, I can support Jeff, but what's something I can do to make a difference? Yeah, so there's lots of things you can do, even just around your house. Yes. Okay. What I always say is the really environmentally friendly soaps and shampoos. That's what I use at my house, and I've been using at my house forever. If you need to use any pesticides around your home, there are environmentally safe pesticides. Some people don't like ants and spiders and roaches, and I get all of that stuff. But instead of getting the black flag or one of those really nasty ones, you can get some that are very effective. And believe me, because all of this stuff that I'm talking about, it makes its way into our rivers and streams, through the groundwater, and will eventually get back into the oceans. Yeah. That's why I don't care if you live in St. Louis, Missouri, like I did, or somewhere in Michigan, or somewhere in Japan. Yeah. All of these things will matter. So, and this is why you can do every day at your house, and it can make a big, big difference. Mm-hmm. Any of the light bulbs that you have in your house, you want the energy efficient ones. Don't listen to the administration saying that they're too expensive. They're worth it. They last a lot longer. They're actually much
cheaper to use over the long run.
Right.
So replace your light bulbs, use that, saving energy and also saving water. All of these things really matter to the ocean creatures, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then, you know, some of our dietary preferences. I still eat fish. I went about 8 years without eating fish. Now I only eat sustainable fish. I don't eat any of the nasty fish farm fish either. I only eat the wild sustainable catches. We can still fish. We can still do these things sustainably. So, but if you don't like fish and don't want to eat fish, then that's good too. That's fine.
Right.
Even cutting down on beef, you know what happens? Because beef, they destroy a lot of the, like what happens in the Amazon. It's not just destroying the trees, it's destroying the river systems. And then all the natural fertilization and the natural characters of streams to be able to like get rid of a lot of the chemicals and things, they end up going straight into the oceans again.
Right.
So chemical pollution is a huge, huge problem that we have. Plastic pollutions, oh my gosh, don't get me started. But just, yes, recycle, reuse, all of those things.
Yeah.
Right now, we're being forced to use plastic bags again in many areas where we didn't have to. I understand why we're doing it right now. I'm just hoping that it doesn't mean that a bunch of us are going to lose that habit and go back and start using plastics all over again. Listen, right now at the rate we're going, another 20 years, there's going to be more plastic in the oceans than there are fish. And that's not made up. That's statistically true. So there's so many things that we can do around the houses and, you know, in our own lives. And then if you decide you want to go to a marine park, please don't go to the ones that still have any of the live dolphin or orca shows. You know, that's not good either. So there's lots of really good marine parks and aquariums out there that just let the animals be as they are. Yeah. And SeaWorld now in California, and I think now through most of their parks they still kind of have a show, but there's no humans involved with interacting with them anymore. I'm hoping to get to the point where there's no show. Right. They're just, if they're swimming around, you watch them swim around. Happen to be there at feeding time, they get fed like some of the other animals get fed. But for them to have to perform for tricks still just infuriates me.
It is heartbreaking. The last time we went, we were given tickets to SeaWorld, and it was painful to, you know, the tears just streaming down from under my sunglasses. And I said to Dave, I can't do this. I can't do this. And the next day we had a pod of the La Paz group of Orca out off Dana Point, and to go out there and see them in the wild and see a calf and, you know, see a big male with his dorsal, you know, 6 feet high, just tall and proud, not, you know, flopped over, was, it was such a gift. It was such a gift. I have a funny story. So this morning I went out for my walk, and my next door neighbor was out there killing his weeds, and he has a big plastic container and it says Roundup on there. And
that's not the one to use.
Hi, Tony. So, hey, that's pretty nasty stuff, right? And it was funny because I knew that, you know, and he said, oh, I know, it's not Roundup. He said, I made the solution Dave told me about. He said, I'm using vinegar and salt. It works great. So I was like, oh, thank God. Because, you know, years ago, before I understood what this stuff does, I had a bird feeder outside in the lawn, and I had, you know, a hummingbird feeder, and it was on like one of those little, you know, sticks, and so I was feeding hummingbirds, and of course the ants are smart, and they're like, hey, where's the sugar water? And so they figure it out, and then they cruise up. And I thought, well, there's got to be something I can do to stop these ants from interrupting my feeding of the hummingbirds. And so, you know, I went and bought some Roundup, and I sprayed the area around the hummingbird feeder on the ground. Do you know, today I still don't have grass there? And It's probably been 12 years. I still have a patch of grass that just never came back. And I just had no idea, you know, I just had no idea. And that patch got bigger and bigger for a while, you know, it just seeping through, you know, the ground. So we're all on our own journey. We're all learning, you know, one thing at a time. I do have a question. Someone said, are orca dangerous to surfers? My son had an encounter and didn't feel like he was in danger, but he was, or was he? That's from Michael Fleming.
My answer is I've been fortunate enough. I've gotten to swim in the wild with orcas on their terms, both the residents and transients.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
The orcas, there's never been a documentative attack of an orca of any type of species on human beings in the wild.
In the wild.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. The only ones you hear about are ones in the captive parks. And I think, see, a lot of people don't understand these orcas in the captive parks, they're given sedatives. They lose their teeth because they're not eating the type of foods that they're supposed to be eating. They're stressed. And I think, and so sometimes these trainers will just push them to their limit. And so what an orca will do with its calf in the wild, if it's getting out of line, it will take it down, it will pin it on the bottom. And let's hold it there for a little bit and then, okay, go get your air now. You've learned your lesson. So what these guys did, especially Tillicum did this several times, take trainers down, pin them to the bottom till they're not breathing anymore. They're gone. He knows it.
Right.
So yes, you don't have to worry about orcas in the wild. Orcas in the wild are fine. They are very curious. It can be a little intimidating to have a 30-foot male orca come right up and look right at you, especially if you're in a kayak or something. But you know, they won't intentionally do anything on purpose. The Haida tribe, I want to tell this story because I think this is things that's pretty interesting. So the Haida tribe, they have the orca at the top of their totem. So they're in southern BC. And that it didn't used to be always. It used to be the grizzly bear, but now the orca is. And so the legend has it that they usually hunted either humpbacks or gray whales. And I went out on this one trip and they didn't find any humpbacks or grays, but there was a pod of orcas. And so the guys decided to kill one of those orcas and they took one of the females. And so they killed the female and they took it back and they did their usual rituals and things like that. And the next time they go out to go hunting, they came across those orcas again. And the big male came and he capsized the canoe and he killed one of the tribe members. He killed the one that had harpooned the female.
Wow.
And he left the rest of them alone. And so they went back and they changed their totem pole and they put the orca at the top and they never hunted orcas again after that. You know, it's pretty powerful, that story, when you think about it. So here's something that's really interesting about orcas, and I can't tell you. So the big predators on the planet, we got the bears, we've got the cats, right? We've got wolves, we've got human beings. And then in the oceans, we've got sharks and we've got orcas. Well, orcas been already shown, they can kill a great white shark. So the orca, the transient orca is a top predator in the ocean. And so when I've been up in the Pacific Northwest, and you've got transients that eat marine mammals, you've got residents that eat fish, and then you've got what are called offshores that they'll eat pretty much which is around. They're like, okay, a tuna's here, I'll eat tuna. Oh, there's a dolphin there, I'll eat a dolphin. Okay, they're not discriminate about what they eat. But when they get up in these certain territories, they give each other berths. So like, you're not going to see resident orcas trying to push transients out or fight. They don't fight over territory, okay? They don't fight over mates. When JK and L pod get together in these super pods, they're mating. So the J's are mating with the K's and the L's and vice versa, because the male orcas will not mate within their own pods. Okay?
Interesting.
So that's pretty interesting too, right? Okay, so they're not fighting over territory, they're not fighting over mates, and they're not fighting over food. Okay. Now, the way that they first captured orcas up in the Pacific Northwest is they drove a big pod of orcas into a cove and they put a big netted enclosure in front of that, okay? And then they put cages inside there, and then they put divers in, and they went and physically separated moms from their babies. They separated the big bulls from the females, and they put them in capture cages. Okay. I'm going to tell the rest of the story in a second, but now imagine if that was lions and I netted an area of lions and there's a big male lion and there's a female lion and there's a bunch of cubs in there. And I go, okay, Giselle, what I want you to do is go inside this net area. And you see that cage over there. I want you to go grab one of those cubs. I want you to put it in that cage. And then you're going to look at me like, are you going to dart the lions or tranquilize them? No, we're not going to do that. I just want you to go grab one. Are you going to go grab one?
No.
Okay. If it were a grizzly bear, it's the same.
No.
Would you go do that? Okay. If it were wolves, a pack of wolves, would you go do that? Why is that? Because you know that those animals are going to protect their babies till the death, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we go back to that scenario. We've got orcas and we've got moms and babies and big bull orcas, all of them together, captured. And these are transients. These are ones that will eat other dolphins and whales. Okay, they didn't know they were transient at the time, but those are transients. The mothers let them separate the babies, put them in capture cages. Mothers went into other capture cages. The bulls went into other capture cages. In this first capture, a lot of the big adults all committed suicide in those cages. They stopped breathing. Dolphins and whales, a lot of people don't understand this, are what we call conscious breathers. They always have to think about their next breath. They don't have our automatic breathing system. So if they go unconscious, they're not coming back. They're done. So a bunch of them chose to kill themselves. Most of the females that had the babies that were captured they stayed with them. Okay. But why would a female orca that would kill the great white shark that was trying to kill its baby allow human beings to separate them into cages? So my answer to that question is like I said, they have one of the biggest brains to body size. They're rational thinkers. So in other words, if you were getting into your car and somebody comes up and you have your daughter with you and he puts a gun to the back of your head and he throws her in the back seat, he makes you drive, you get in. Okay. Your first instinct would be, maybe I can knock the gun out of his hand. Maybe I got a chance here, but it's too fast. He's already in the car. So now what you're going to try to do is you're probably going to do what he tells you to do. Yeah. And you're going to do that in the hopes that at some point he's going to let you two get out of the car and then he's just going to go away. Okay. Right. So I think that these orcas understood that if they retaliate against those divers, if one of the big bulls kills one of those divers, then, oh no, they're all going to get killed. And so they made a conscious choice. The females made a conscious choice. I'm going to let this happen. Wow. Because I've reasoned this out. And a lot of the researchers I work with that also work with orcas a lot longer than I have feel that.
Wow.
Yeah. Because there's no other rational explanation.
Right. No. Wow. Yeah,
so
they're
orcas,
beautiful animals. They're beautiful and they're just incredibly curious. I have a story. It's not a sad story. It's a fun story. And you can see this. And before I forget, I was going to ask you, the Orcas in Crisis, as well as the other footage you sent me, is that available on like a YouTube channel or your website if somebody wants to look at that?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, I have my YouTube channel is up there.
We'll put a link. We'll put a link below for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because then all of like my LinkedIn, my YouTube, my Facebook, all of them, all of the social networks are all listed on that page. And you can actually, if you go to my Orcas, the Southern Resident Orca page, you can find Orcas in Crisis there. Okay. But yeah, the YouTube page is the best because most of the stuff that I've done is all up on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So my story is a fun story. This was, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. And because Ariel's 18 and she was maybe 7, so 7 or 8, so maybe 10 years. Anyway, we were out there on dolphinsafari.com, which is our smaller catamaran. And we had gotten a call, hey, there's Orca out there, and it was CA51, which is a transient group. And I think are they transient or offshore?
I'm pretty sure they're transients. I think they're transients.
And they were taking down a sea lion, at a big, humongous, several 100-pound sea lion. And Monoteo was out there. We actually had some friends on the boat that day, and they were down in the underwater viewing pods. And one of the bull males came right up to the window and looked in the pod. So they're very curious. Hey, what's the, I don't normally see windows on boats, underwater. And he was very curious. And so he came over and checked that out. Big male, gorgeous 6-foot fin. And so we went out there on dolphinsafari.com and which had outboards.
Yeah.
And so we're up there, Dave's filming, I'm driving, and we're up on that little tower in the back of the boat, you know, and Ariel is way out in the front of the boat. And dolphinsafari.com is all told 35 feet long. And you just don't realize how big orca are.
Yeah.
Until you're up high and you look down and you see the body of the orca and you see your boat and you're like, dang. And then when you see them flipping, you know, a sea lion that probably weighs 400 or 500 pounds, just bouncing it around like it's a wiffle ball, you know, just flipping it, no problem. And, you know, when they feed, they're very gregarious, but the male left the group. They had been feeding and the male left the group and we were just sitting in the water and the engines were off and we had our two outboards on the back of the boat. And the bull came over and he comes over and he's looking at our propellers on the back of the boat. And, you know, Dave's filming and he's like, what's he doing? And I said, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know, you know, like, and he turns on his side and he comes and he opens up his mouth and you're watching this from, you know, 10 feet up and you're looking down and he puts out his tongue and he tastes the propeller. Like what, you know, what I've always wanted to taste one of these. And he goes to the next one and he does the same thing, turns on his side, and we've got footage of it. And, you know, Dave's like, what is he doing? I said, I think he's just tasting the props. We've got it on one of our YouTube videos. If we, I'll ask Danielle to go ahead and put a link to it because it's a great video. If you're interested, it's super fun to watch them, but just to see them and then to hear their vocalizing and to see the happy, just the happy family, you know, that they are when they're out in the wild like that is such a gift. It's such a beautiful gift. And I love what you do. Go ahead.
Orcas too. So in California, I've only swum with them in the wild once. And that was maybe 15, 16 years ago. I was by myself, just heading over to Catalina. And about halfway over, I came across like 5 transients. And the water was crystal clear and I got in. And back then I was shooting my Nikonus 5 camera and I shot some stills. It was all females and one bull. And this bull turns and he starts coming up and he opens up his mouth and he regurgitates this huge, big piece of blubber. I mean, right in front of me, I got a picture of it. It's this huge, big piece of blubber. And then he takes it and he like shakes it around a little bit and then he swallows it. And I think he was just like, you know, hey, just wanted to show you what we were just doing. And okay. Yeah.
Not for me. Thank you. I'm just had lunch. I'm good. Maybe he wanted to share a little bit. I don't know.
That's too crazy.
Wild. Yeah. That is so fun. Yeah. They're brilliant. They're just brilliant. And I hope someday in heaven that we'll actually be able to talk to them. That's my dream. That's my prayer that's what heaven on earth will be. We'll actually get to talk with them and it'll be a cool thing. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. Michael says that you're very informative and I think everybody watching this has learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot and it's been really good to catch up with you. And if you think of anything else you want us to put below, let us know and we'll include it. I so appreciate your time and your life's work. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's been a gift to have you with us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.